I'll call this meeting to order and we'll start with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First item of business tonight is the approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting September 11th, 2023. Everyone's had a chance to review them. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the board minutes. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business are the general fund vouchers 80695 through 80809 and wire transfers 2024 double lot 90 through 2024 0144. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the general fund vouchers 80695 through 80809 and wire transfers 2024-0090 through 2024-0144.
I'll second it.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the general fund vouchers as read. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business is the public comment section. Is anybody here to make a public comment on anything? No? Okay, so then we'll move on to the spotlight on education. And tonight we're going to be talking about professional learning communities at work.
All right, so we have our third grade team here with us tonight. There was some question in a past meeting or so about what are PLCs? What is it all about? Give us a little more information. And we've shared a little bit about the conferences that we've gone to, but this is kind of that in action. So this is just a little handout. It's also linked in your board docs of just kind of what professional learning communities are. They're really just collaborative teams, but they use the process called professional learning communities. So we don't have, we're PLCing, it's not in that kind of tense. We collaboratively work using the professional learning community process. So there's 3 big ideas. I will not read all of this. And then the teachers are continuously going through these 4 critical questions down at the bottom left. Doesn't go really in any order. I mean, it's good to understand your essentials and move on, but as they're collaborating, they do all of those questions. And then if your kids have talked anything about learning targets, that all kind of comes out of this process. So would love to have.
Can I say a couple things? So the 3 big ideas, the thing that's important about that, it's the first one there, focus on learning. It means, focus on learning as opposed to focus on teaching. For years and decades we've focused on what we're teaching, but instead the focus is on our kids actually learning. What is learning happening? And collaborative culture too. We like to use the word, it's interdependent collaboration. So meaning it's a way of doing business where you get to a level where any kind of problem that in the classroom, in the school, whatever, it's not a matter of, well, what am I going to do? It's always, well, what are we going to do? Where, the team doesn't really function without being a team. That's the sort of collaboration that we want to have. Wherever there's a question of what we're going to do, it's always, well, we need to go to the team to look at it. So.
Okay, so Casey, Rachel, and Tasha.
Okay, sure. So we were kind of thinking like the PLC, like the way, the process of it, we feel like it kind of gives us like the direction, kind of like the why and the what of what we're supposed to be doing as teachers. So we talk about, and kind of like Mr. Peterson said, about the like what are we going to do about it as a team. So in 3rd grade, like it wouldn't matter what student had which one of us, all the kids are getting the same content and they're being taught the same material. So we still have like our own individual kind of like touch on teaching, but like if you were to walk into each one of our classrooms, they'd be getting the exact same content that was covered.
Yeah, there's that student equity part
things that we talk about are what proficiency looks like. So when we are planning these, what we're delivering to the students, then we're focusing on that learning part and thinking, then what are they going to show us? How are they going to show us that they really know what we're expecting them to teach or to learn?
Some other things we do at team time is we take different assessments that we've given them and we share them, and we decide, okay, who's got it, who doesn't. It helps us to plan our intervention times. If we aren't sure how to assess if they're proficient or not, we'll be like, okay, what would you score them? What would you score them? And we'll have that conversation. We also create upcoming assessments together, so the students are getting the exact same thing across the board.
Yeah, so the biggest piece too is this year we have an hour of planning time together, and then Andrea, who's the interventionist, comes and meets with us as well. So then she's not trying to figure out what the kids need. We can tell her, hey, this is what we need your help on, which is super helpful as well.
And part of what we've learned from going to some of the PLC conferences and reading some of the books that they recommended is to find data and evidence about what the students have learned. So we are not just determining like they can add or they can't add, but like which part of it. Is it like the regrouping part, or are they making like computation errors? Are they not learning the process of it, or which part of it is hard for them to know? So then when we are working together, there might be like 3 kids from my class and 3 from each of theirs that are making the same errors. So then we can work on their proficiency that way rather than just giving them a test where they got like 5 wrong out of 20. So it kind of narrows it down more so we know specifically what they're learning or not learning.
That's been a huge help to me over the past like 2 years of just being able to be like, okay, this specific part, and it helps the kids too because they're like, oh, I didn't get the whole thing wrong, I just need this part of it.
And going with that, even for me, moving up to 3rd grade this year, it's knowing what we want the kids to learn all together. Instead of just, oh, I'm teaching this, what do I want them to know? I can work with Casey and Rachel and know, okay, this is why we're teaching it, and this is what they need to learn from it.
One other thing we started implementing this year is we call them like the steps to success. So it shows like based on our standards. So looking at like our first question 1, like what are they intended to know? And then we have kind of like stair-stepped it out because the standards are like big and cumbersome. So we've broken them down into the steps to learning that standard. And then we have like check boxes in our room as a whole, like what we've taught, but then the individual students also have their copy. So after a quiz, we can conference with them and say, okay, are you at this step yet? And then we can prove to them like this is what you did or this is what you didn't do on this. So if you work on this part, then we'd be able to check that box and you'd be able to keep going.
You're really motivated this time to check it off. So putting the learning into their own hands and that student advocacy part of it.
I had one girl tell me yesterday, she's like, well, I didn't check mine off, but I think I can now. So like she knew what her mistake was, and then she was looking forward to the next check-in time so she'd be able to mark that step off.
So as you can see, it takes a lot of time to collaborate. So a few years ago, we did the 7:30 start on Thursday mornings. A half an hour goes in a blink. So this past spring and through the summer, we sort of revamped, not sort of, we did. We revamped our elementary schedule so each grade level team can get 60 minutes of uninterrupted planning time, collaborative time using the PLC process. It was very challenging to make that happen. So you're trying to do back-to-back specials with shared staff. I mean, it was a puzzle piece beyond, but we did it. And so now they get 60 minutes uninterrupted. They don't have to leave and go get their kids and move them around. The specialists do that. And they also still have the 30 minutes on a Thursday morning. It still is not enough.
That's per day?
No, once every 6-day rotation.
Every
Yeah,
6
once
days?
every
Okay.
6-day rotation. So
Sure.
they're getting, 90 minutes technically a week, which to do this kind of work and be this, they are so laser focused. Kiddos can tell you what they know and what they're still working on. And that's where we want from pre-K to grade 12 to be.
So each grade has their own PLC?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there any other PLCs out there?
So during the 6-day rotation, the 60-minute, you are with your grade level partner. The 7:30 Thursday mornings, they tend to go more in content. So 4, 5, and 6 math may meet together. Specialists will maybe meet together. Our special ed department pops in because we could not fit 60 minutes in various places for our special ed department. So they have to pop around at 7:30 on a Thursday morning. So
We can also then have that time to go visit other grade levels and kind of chat and see what they're doing and make sure like we're aligned with standards of, oh, you did this to prep up for this, or so that's really helpful too.
Yeah, so the phrase we like to use is that we are becoming a PLC, a professional learning community. Our school, our district, and then at the team level, you say we are a professional learning community. And it's like Mrs. Anderson said, it's a way of doing things. It's a way of doing business. You know, so again, it's not a program or a list. It's a way of doing. It's a way of doing things. So, and third grade is just an awesome example of a group that has embraced it and it really understands it and is really showing a great example of what it can look like.
Yeah, I've been fortunate to go to 2 of the in-person conferences in the summer. I've went the last 2 summers, and then before that, I did the virtual one. And I feel like with each time that I've gone, there's so much more to learn about it, and then like my focus has changed each time. So I feel like it's definitely beneficial for someone to go for the first time. I think Tasha was her, and maybe
It was my first
time, but then to keep going because it's not the same thing each time.
Very good. Anyone have any questions?
I think my only question is, like, now that you know and you've mapped exactly what they're learning, is there any way to correlate that with, like, the student scores on the placement tests? Because there's always that thought of, you know, students don't always take tests well, but with the secondary, we know that they're learning, so how do we, like, basically be able to tell that story if the scores aren't going up, but we know the learning is happening?
I think our hope with the way we're starting this is like having the students focus on more of them knowing what they know rather than just if they answered the questions right on the test. Hopefully when they get to those higher level tests, they'll start saying like, well, I can do this because I know how to learn, not just answer the questions right. So I would hope that it would eventually correlate.
It ought to. Any other questions?
Kudos to you, because I think of this process and it sounds long and arduous. It sounds great and it's going to be really good for the future of our kids, but you do it for English, you do it for math, you do it for social studies. So if you only do it one every 6 days, you might get English figured out, but by the time you wrap back around to English 4 rotations later, because then the next one you're working on social studies, kudos. I mean, thanks for investing in this, because I can see how it's going to be great, but you're teaching all subjects and an hour isn't a time to get to all subjects. So good job.
And I'll say at the elementary, we have been focusing mostly on math and ELA, you know, just putting the priority there for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But you're right, it all has to, it all moves forward, so. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank you, ladies.
It's good to put names to your faces, too.
Is Peter behaving himself?
That's live. So.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
And if you guys want to sneak out, you don't have to sit here for the rest of the meeting. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, our next item of business is the approval of resignations, and I think we'll just skip this part indefinitely.
I'm fine with that.
All right, well, we've got one resignation. Mr. Peterson, I'll let you speak to it.
Yeah, so Lori Karnick spoke to me late last week and has decided that it's time to retire. So very happy for her. And we know that that's going to be some big shoes to fill in our district with all the things that Lori does for everyone in our district. And I know personally, for me, the kind of support that she gives to me and to Joy in the office, again, very big shoes to fill. So, well, it's all I can say right now.
Then it's with great regret that I entertain a motion.
I move to approve the resignations.
I'll second it.
It's been properly
With
moved.
regret.
It's been properly moved and seconded to.
Can't be here forever.
We just appreciate how
Yes,
long
you
you
can.
How long?
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve our resignations. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business is our approval of hires. Well, let's just hire her right back again.
Yeah, no new hires
No
yet,
new
so.
hires. So the next item of business is the approval of the winter coaching roster.
Okay, so you can see the list on there, and just one, no real changes really from last year. One position yet to fill, one of the junior high girls basketball positions is still yet to be determined. But that season doesn't actually start till January, so there's still a little bit of time yet. So.
All right, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the winter coaching roster.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the winter coaching roster. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business is the approval of Start College Now and Early College Credit Program applications.
Okay. Mr. Melberg, do you have anything to add as far? I mean, you can open them up and look at them. And
Take a look. I've got 2 applications. One young lady who's applying for 6 credits. She has some options on there, all of which would qualify for us to approve, and basically going to kind of wait and see what best fits into her second semester schedule. She is a veteran to Start College Now and Early College Credit. She has set herself up nicely moving forward with college credits and wants to continue that the second half of her senior year. And a young man who's going to take his first one, basically trying to get a jump start on some econ classes before he heads off to college next fall. I would recommend approving for both students.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the Start College Now and Early College Credit Program applications.
I'll second it.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the Start College Now and Early College Credit Program applications. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
And again, like Mr. Melberg said, they won't necessarily be taking all those classes, but they just put the choices that they would like to be able to consider. So.
All right, next item of business then is the review of the third Friday student count and enrollment.
Okay. So this is just, the review that we always do to just look at our enrollment numbers, but I thought it would be an opportunity to take a little bit of time to kind of take a little deeper dive into some of those numbers, something that I've been, personally doing. So the attachments down below, so the first one on there is the pupil count report that goes to the Department of Public Instruction, and so this is the actual numbers that go to the DPI, and this is the part that Nettie, the clerk, will sign. This was submitted by September 30th, before September 30th, but this is based upon third Friday in September every year is when we, that moment frozen in time where everybody counts their kids across the state. We do it again second Friday in January. So what's important to understand is that those numbers on there are not actual bodies and seats. Okay, so there's a formula that goes into all that. That includes open enrolled kids in and out. So when we do the FTEs that go to the DPI, the students who are open enrolled out, we're counting residents in our district. So those kids are our residents, so we count them as our students. And then the students who are open enrolled in, we don't count those students. Okay, so every district counts their own, and then what happens is it all gets submitted, and then there's a formula where money gets exchanged between the districts to, so when we have a student that open enrolls out, we actually transfer money that follows them over to the other district. Open enroll in, we get payments from other districts. So, and then if you scroll down to the second, first document, the FTE report to the DPI, if you scroll down to the second page, I just included this in there, one of the pages when you submit the report is just they do a little quick comparison last year to this year. Part of it is just make you see like, hey, you've got a 300% change here, to make you catch an error and things like that. But, just to see the reduction in numbers right there. So we had a very small classes of 5K and 4K this year, and then graduated a larger number of seniors last year, and then also just had the normal in and outs, grades 1 through 11 as well. Now, not to be too alarmed, that negative 23, we're down 23 FTEs. It doesn't mean that we immediately take that hit on the revenue. It's smoothed out over 3 years. So there's always a rolling 3-year average of your enrollment. So it meant to smooth those kind of things out a little bit. So, but it definitely is, a significant reduction for us. For a district with only 550 to 600 kids, that's a significant number. If you click on the second attachment, which is third Friday pupil count, that one is the actual, bodies and seats. And so there's a lot of information here. And the reason we have all these different categories and stuff is because we'll sit down as a team. So it'll be Mrs. Roble and Mrs. Labrie and Mrs. Blanchard and myself, and we'll sit in here and they bring in all the data, all the lists, and then we kind of go through and we fill this out first because of the questions that the report asks for. You got to be able to say for each grade level how many open enrolled in, out, special ed students, special ed open enrolled in and out, those kind of things. So that's why there's so many categories. But the totals are over on the left as far as broken down by. But our district total for pre-K through 12 is 544 students that we are actually, that includes the open enrolled kids in and excludes the open enrolled kids out. These are the actual students in our midst in front of us that we're educating. So, and that also includes students who are virtual as well. So of that 544, 11 of those you can see are virtual students or taking classes virtually, all at the secondary level.
We take a big dip after the 9th grade.
Yeah, what you'll notice there is you'll see that, when we get down to, we have a pretty robust, enrollment at the high school right now. 200 kids, couple classes over 50, other classes in the mid to upper 40s. Kind of what I would call typical for Clear Lake for the last, 50 years. Then we get down to 8th grade with 40 kids. We've definitely had several classes with 40, dipped into the 30s at times. We go from 7th grade on down and we look at some very, rather small numbers, much smaller than we're used to. And the last couple of years, particularly kindergarten and JK, very, very small numbers. Now, I would say traditionally over time, I've seen we tend to add kids as they progress through the grades. We tend to have more kids move in. We tend to have some of those, open enrollment kids come in, or, I don't know. It's just I don't have anything to necessarily quantify. Well, the next thing I'll show you might quantify a little bit. But we tend to, it seems like those numbers do tend to grow slightly over time. But when we're starting off from those, 30s, that's a pretty smaller number. So. Something to just, that we are aware of and that we just need to understand the impact of that.
So we're talking 5 years from now, we could have 100 less.
Mm-hmm. If the trend continues,
we're looking at 100 less.
Yeah.
Well, they're predicting a cliff, and that goes with that same trajectory.
You're talking about, you mean just statewide?
Yeah.
Or? Yeah.
A demographic cliff.
And enrollment is down across the state in general as well, but again, for us, that's out of the norm. That's definitely something significant and something to be aware of.
Is that public school enrollment?
Public school enrollment is down. Actually, private school enrollment is down too.
Is it?
Yeah.
If you just look at the school-age population, I think is down. You can probably do a correlation between the two.
Well, and we'll look at a few more things here that I think give some more insights. So that's part of where I was at. I was like, well, let's dig into this a little bit more, and I wanted to share. So the third document there just shows historically, and this is specifically head count. So this is, again, bodies and seats, and that's enrollment going back, 10 years plus. And you can just see, you can go the very bottom number across the bottom, JK-12 total, and you can see, we've tended to hover up around that 600 range, and then you can see a fairly significant drop-off the last 4 or 5 years. We know 2020-21, that was a big drop-off across the state. COVID. We saw a lot of people choosing to homeschool, and not just in Clear Lake, but everywhere. So there's a big drop off there. But there's just you can see just a trend of. I did showed the difference year to year on the bottom, and you can see some years where we were positive in the single digits, but some years where we've been negative single digits, and now negative double digits some years. And just kind of projecting forward, if you look at the grade 9-12 total, everyone seems interested in that, right? Everyone, how big is your high school? How many students in your, what size is your school for divisions placement for sports and things like that? So, if you look at our 9-12 total right now, this year we're at 201, and then 196 next year, and then you'll see that it starts to drop off after that down in, potentially, if everything holds as it does, which it rarely does, but potentially down in the 140s, which would be historically pretty small for Clear Lake over a period of time. So we got to keep our eye on that every year, and then also that's planning that we do for staffing, planning that we do for how we offer our classes and how we schedule, and those things have impacts when you have a smaller scale. So not that we can't do it, and we certainly will and can, but something to be aware of. Over time we've had some attrition in staffing at our elementary school. So we had 3 sections, K 1, 2, and 3 every year. Currently we have 3 sections in 3rd grade, and the others are 2. And so we've been, I would say, fortunate. We've been able to kind of make those staffing reductions through attrition in Clear Lake, where we've had people naturally retiring or people who have moved to other positions elsewhere, and been able to shuffle people around. And so we've actually, we've accommodated some of that reduction already with our staffing at the elementary. If we look at the very last document, this is what I was curious to research a little bit more. So it's enrollment historical data, CLSD. So again, head count across the top. Head count 912, because as I said, everyone's interested in that usually. And you can see, not too long ago, within 10 years, we had a pretty good dip back 13, 14, 15. We were down in the 160s, which was, pretty small dip for us. And then we've been back up in that 180, 170, 180, 200 this year. The FTE count, again, that's the DPI formula. So that is the, open enrollment kids counted in the different way, is the FTE report.
So these homeschool totals, are these the number of homeschool kids in our district?
Yes. Yeah. So that's the part to look at. What's interesting, again, we saw a significant change from 2019-20 was the last quote unquote kind of normal start to the year. Obviously spring of 20 we had the shutdown, and then 2021 is when we saw a lot of families make the choice to homeschool for because of the pandemic, and so we saw a significant increase there, and many of those students have just not returned, and we've also seen it tick up a little bit since there. And I think many families have learned that they can homeschool, they like it. I think in today, 2023, it's easier to homeschool with online courses and things that you didn't have 10, 15, even 5 or 10 years ago. So I think that's a significant, part of this, and it's not just Clear Lake, but it's again something that we need to be aware of and maybe think strategically about. How is there some way we can, try to recapture some of those students by as numbers that we are able to include in our school community somehow. Same thing with open enrollment too. We kind of about 6-7 years ago we kind of started a trend of, and so we've been we were there many years ago, 15 years ago, and we kind of got it positive, and we again the factors for open enrollment tend to be family and work and situations like that, but again I think thinking about strategy for how we can maybe hopefully recapture that and try to turn some of those numbers around. So So just, can draw your own conclusions and insights, I guess, from it, or maybe brings up more questions and answers, but just wanted to share that data. I thought it was pretty interesting and tells a little bit deeper story. So I think it's the optimistic part is if we look at, say some of the homeschool numbers and some of the open enrollment numbers. I mean, if we're able to recapture even a smaller percentage of those, that gets our enrollment kind of where we, traditionally have been. So I guess that's the more optimistic part of it too. And then the other piece is kind of like Christy mentioned. I think population statewide is going down. However, in our region, population is going up. So we've got movement out with the Stillwater Bridge.
Yep.
Obviously, New Richmond's exploding, and Somerset, and those communities. And I think as a community too, it's a discussion of, how do we make it so people can live in Clear Lake? We got great jobs, we've got a great economic base in Clear Lake with manufacturing jobs and good economy here. We've got people driving to Clear Lake and living elsewhere. How can we get housing in Clear Lake so those people are living in Clear Lake and raising their kids here and working here? And I think that's a community challenge to tackle too, long range.
So do they ever publish any kind of results from these homeschoolers that, as far as test grades?
No, it's Wisconsin has one of the most loose, I would say, homeschool laws in terms of basically, our parents need to register with the DPI that they're homeschooling, and beyond that, there's not really any kind of accountability that goes with it. So that's also why too the data for this year is incomplete. Families actually still have till the 15th of October to register. So there's still people registering on there. So I know, last year what the number was, so we'll see what it is for this year. But, so it's not complete yet. So.
Is it possible to figure out where students are opening and enrolling to?
Yeah, absolutely.
What schools? Outside of maybe their parents working at that school? I really get that, why younger kids go with where their family is teaching, but outside of them having a parent that teaches at the school, what schools are we losing them the most to? I
think it's more work, like the parent works in, say, Amory, and they drive their child there when they're very little, and it's convenient when they're in 4K or kindergarten, they drop them off there, or they take them to daycare there, and then they just get started there, and once they start, of course, the student wants to stay where they're at, so it's a lot of that. All the open enrollment, it's all definitely a database of which district they're open enrolled to and from. Yeah. So.
Well, it doesn't hurt, or it doesn't help our cause that, probably half of our district is a softball throw away from Amory, who has excellent academic numbers and a lot more opportunities for their kids than Clear Lake does. And I'm sure, I haven't seen the data that shows that a lot of them go to Amory, but I would guess a lot of them probably do.
Yeah, we touch, we get Amory, Clayton, Boyceville, Glenwood, to and from. We got kids to and from all the districts that touch us, really. And I think every family is unique. And I think that's, survey. We can survey those families and try to get at the specific reasons why and help us learn more.
Well, most of what we can do is just keep doing a good job for our community, for our kids, and the test results will eventually show that. And
I think test results and offerings and how we operate in our culture, and how we can personalize for families and for kids, and I think that's a feather in our cap, is the way that we are able to make the experience and learning personalized for students with their teachers and with the entire staff.
Let's make a note to talking about this quarterly, Chris. This is a kind of an important topic, I think, for us to kind of keep fostering and kicking around. If we had somebody in the community that was a developer that actually chose Clear Lake to develop in, I just think of the households that would just, produce kids for our district. We just don't have that here.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I think there's some people kind of trying to work on that in the background, but yeah, there's a lot of challenges to it. But it can happen, and I think it needs to.
And that's
it
all
will happen
good,
eventually.
but talk to those districts that increased 100 kids over the last 2 years and what they struggle with too. I mean, it's a different problem, but it's still going to be
I'll take that
interesting
one, though.
problem.
I'll take that one too.
Yeah, I mean, talk to Somersets or the Hammond or Roberts or New Richmond schools. I mean, they really struggle.
Yeah. I hope we can have slow, gradual growth. That's kind of the ideal thing.
I don't think, we're not close enough to the cities that it'd be that fast.
Yeah.
Somerset just shot up incredibly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they've been doing that for 20 years. They just keep boom, boom, boom. Yep. So, anyway, something to keep grinding our gears on and thinking about strategies. And
Thanks for bringing that to the table.
I wanted to make sure that we have that conversation and get it out there.
All right, any other questions on that subject? All right, next item of business is the review of the district safety drills.
Okay, so as you know, back in September we reviewed our emergency procedures, and then every year annually we also we are required to make sure that we conduct safety drills, particularly severe weather in the spring and the fall, and then we try to do fire drills monthly, weather permitting. We are allowed to not have them in the winter when it's really cold, and hold drills, things like that. So we always make sure that we do a hold drill in the first few weeks of school, which is it's really wise. Like, for example, this year, we had that hold drill, and then we had an actual situation in the building where it was like a medical situation where we had to do a real hold. Kids handled it great because they weren't alarmed. They weren't, they've been through, they knew what to do. The staff knew what to do, and everyone was just fine and calm and just kept teaching in their classroom. And so that shows the importance of doing those drills. No one was, what's going on? What's this? What's a hold? Everybody knew what to do. So, and then we added just a few more just today. We had it's Fire Safety Week, so Chief Burr comes and does an observed one at least once a year too in the fall. So, but just wanted to make sure that we document and discuss, and then we did have a little we did a little extra one today.
I saw that on the timing. I'm like,
yeah, so
they were out faster in the first one.
There was some hesitation in the second one whether they should go or not. So.
Is this real? Just went.
Yeah, what's that?
The older they get better though.
Well, and that's one thing that is awesome. I mean, in this building, my goodness, I think 45 seconds is maybe an overestimate. I mean, it's 30 seconds. This building's empty. And also at the elementary, it's like a minute. I mean, this was their first couple this year. I mean, those little ones take a little more time to get rounded up, and they're disoriented, when they hear the noise. And I mean, it's still amazing. I mean, those buildings are empty so quickly, so efficiently, which is a credit to the staff and the kids. And our kids were very cooperative, in this building and the other building. I mean, with the drills, but also when we had an actual hold situation. I mean, it was awesome. You couldn't have asked for a better response from everybody. So just wanted to make sure that we review that we do these and that they're very helpful. So.
Okay. Next item of business is the review of the board retreat for professional development held on September 27th. 2023.
You had to put number 3 on there.
So we did. I put the agenda of what we did. So I'll just read the summary, but then I'll let the people who were there. You can kind of chime in on anything there. But we did a Zoom meeting with Brad Saron, our consultant, who's helping us with our strategic plan implementation. He just kind of reviewed the work that's been done so far and what's work that's upcoming. We took a tour of the elementary. The board expressed a year ago that you'd like, the opportunity to go around and see the facilities beyond what you see publicly every day. And Mr. Tom Osmond was there to lead us through some of the, brought us to some of the places that most people don't go, the HVAC, mezzanine, and some of the behind-the-scenes infrastructure that makes the buildings go. And so we did have a little break for eating, and then we did an activity where we brainstormed some ideas for teacher growth exemplars. By that we meant, as a teacher progresses through their career here in our district, if they are growing and learning and developing their craft, and if they are helping to grow and develop our district, what does that look like? What are some of those behaviors and activities that we would see? And just ask the board to kind of come up with brainstorm on sticky notes, and we'll do a similar activity with staff as well. So kind of beginning the process of looking at our compensation model and possibilities to modify it. So, and then we did a very quick review of the online WASDA professional development resources.
Sorry I couldn't make it with you guys that night.
Yeah, understandably. Not feeling well. So, other things to add from the board members? Other insights or?
I think Brad's doing a good job. These are moving forward. So.
Yeah, we met again this week on Zoom. Administrative team, Lori was there as well, and I think really had a big step forward with what we did this week. Just digging in. We had been doing some of the work on our own, and then it's good to have his insights and oversights to basically, this is we're on the right track here, or this part over here, maybe there's a different idea or a different way to look at that. So I feel like we made.
Is that something else we should have on a quarterly update of just where admin is at with that?
Yeah, we're keeping it on the agenda here to keep talking about it for sure. Yep, for sure.
Right on. Well, any other questions about the retreat? All right, seeing none, then we'll move on to the review of homecoming.
Okay, for this, I'll kind of turn it over to the principals. Whoever wants to go first.
I can get started. We had a really good week. Thanks
Aside
to the
from
kids.
Rain?
Except what?
Aside from rain.
Yeah, but credit to the kids and the staff because we were able to kind of adjust on the fly and make everything work. So to begin with, the participation level from the kids throughout the week was better than I've seen in 3 years here, and it was never bad. So we had a ton of participation from the kids. The hallways for each grade level, the decorations of the hallways, there were far more kids participating in that. The hallways were awesome. We had to move the bonfire, but that went great, and we got to do it right after a big win by our volleyball team on Tuesday night. So we had a ton of kids out there for that. Thank you to the fire department who was flexible with us with that too. No chance we were going to get a fire lit on Monday night with all the rain that we had. And with that, we moved up the outdoor games to Wednesday afternoon, which threw a monkey wrench in the teacher's schedule, but they just, as they always do, went with the flow, and we made it work. Kids were fantastic out there. Mr. Crawford does a great job with that. He does a great job with the whole week. We had a tailgate party before the game on Friday night. We raised $1,400 for our athletics. And what did we say, Chris? In just over an hour?
Less than 2 hours, yeah.
Hour and a couple hours and $1,400. So thank you to Allison Blanchard for organizing that, and Carrie Blanchard. Football game was well attended. Saturday night, I think this is pretty cool. 146 kids attended the dance. We got 201 in the high school. About 10 to 12 of those were guests, but 146 out of 201 were here, which I thought
that's awesome.
Was really great. So they had a good time. Kids were fantastic. They keep me up way too late though. It's past my bedtime. Just a huge thank you to Mr. Crawford and the student council in each grade level, because they basically put on the entire week. The parade was great. We had a lot of participation in the parade. Just a win in a football game was the only thing that maybe could have gone a little bit better, but that was a tough matchup for homecoming. So, but fantastic week.
Elementary perspective, sometimes the kids don't know why they're dressing up. They're having a great time. So we kick off the week with a little pep rally. The pep band comes over, and the cheerleaders come over for just a little 15-20 minutes something. So gets them all geared up, and then they just dress up funny for the rest of the week. They love the parade. To get an entire school district downtown, 2 buildings, all of that, it takes an army. So we're crossing streets, we're doing all sorts of stuff. So thanks to the community folks who set up the barriers. It was just a very safe experience, and the kids just really enjoy it. Beautiful day. I got to chaperone my second homecoming dance. Melberg just will not stay off the dance floor. That's the problem.
He's an immersive show.
Yeah, oh gosh, he's just like, he's leading the bunny hop. I mean, he's just all over the place. One thing that was really cool at the end of the dance is kids were coming up as they were starting to see us tear down chairs and stuff. And all of a sudden, you know, the music's still playing, last song or so, and then all of the kids are just helping take tables down and put stuff away. And it was just really, we have some really awesome kids that are just asking, what can I do to help? So
Yeah.
that's great.
That's one thing, we were talking about this week, just the, I'm really pleased and really proud we have a very positive culture around our homecoming with our kids. You know, I hear of other districts, so I've worked in other districts, and, you know, sometimes that homecoming culture isn't always so positive. There's, you know, things going on in the evenings, you know, with vandalism or kids doing things, you know, to each other, with each other they shouldn't be doing. And, you know, some districts you talk about, you know, we do a bonfire, we do a parade, and, you know, some people are like, we could never do that. You know, we couldn't do that in our building or in our district, you know. And so it's just awesome, and it's a credit to, you know, the principals they're humble, you know, they put a lot of work into it too to make it all go and make the logistics happen. But credit to, you know, the entire staff. Everybody does their part, whether it's just helping kids get downtown on Friday for the, you know, kindergartners watching the parade, or whether it's, you know, Mr. Crawford or Mr. Vitalis really doing big things to get their groups ready. There's a lot that goes into it, but you know, it's just it's something that builds positive culture in our district and builds school spirit, which is important, very important. And I'm just proud of the positive culture that's there, and that's because of, you know, years of tradition of people cultivating that. So something that we can take pride in. So.
Yeah, amen. All right, anything else on the homecoming? All right, let's get into some exciting stuff now. Let's talk about budget.
Okay, so no action tonight and no decisions, but what I want to do is just sort of preview and give you some ideas of some of the things that I've been wrestling with or that we will wrestle with for the next few weeks before we come back October 23rd and actually adopt our levy and adopt our actual revenue limit and budget. So I've got the attachment there is just a historical, it goes, you know, way back. But the if we just kind of look at the very, you know, the bottom row, 2016 through the present 2023. So this is a historical document from you can pull from DPI. So the total levy, you know what that means. So like last year, fall 2022, total levy $2,658,836. So that means that's the dollar amount that we levied locally, local property taxes. Okay. In addition to that, there was another $5-6+ million that came to us through state aid. Okay, so we're roughly, you know, 70-30. You know, 70% of our aid comes from the state, 30% comes from local taxes. So total levy, that's the local property taxes. Total equalized value, what that is the total of all the property values throughout our school district, and you know, if you add them all together. So last year that number was $322,857,000 total. So that was a big, you know, pretty big bump up from the year before. And then lo and behold, look at now this year, it's highlighted there in yellow, 2023, $393,065,887 is the total equalized value throughout our entire district of all the property. Okay, so then what the next equalized rate, that's another word for mill rate, right? So you can see last year our mill rate was 8.24. So what that is you take, you know, the total equalized value, or the total levy divided by the total equalized value, and you get that number. It's actually 0.008, and then we, you know, move the decimal over and all that. But that's where that term mill rate comes from. So mill rate is a function of amount levied divided by amount, you know, of property value. So the reason that I want to bring this up tonight is because there's a you know, striking drop in the mill rate. Okay, so changes from August 1st to now we have, actual enrollment numbers. We have open enrollment in and out. We have the property value. So we had done a very conservative 5% increase in property value. Well, it's 21%.
Very.
We debated 5 or 10. We're like, well, 10. They were like, well, 10 would be, a little more aggressive. 5 would be more conservative. So, well, let's go more conservative, and 21% for our area. 13% was statewide. 21% in our
Then we
area.
wouldn't have been.
What's that?
Even with that, we wouldn't have been on.
Yeah, I mean, if we had done 10 and it was 13, but yeah, so, and that's, I figured it would be higher, but I didn't figure it would be that much higher. So, and then, so it all factors together. And I've got revenue limit worksheets that I can show you if you want to dive deeper into this, depending how deep you want to go. So basically, I have a couple of options off there on the right. So the August 1st estimate, you can see we had estimated a total levy of $2,876,000. Okay, now we're estimating a smaller levy, $2,596,000. Why is that? Well, we are actually getting a lot more equalized aid from the state than was projected, like almost $300,000 different. Part of it is the property value change. Part of it is just the formula that we use to estimate what the equalized value was going to be. So, anyway.
Are we worried about the mill rate dropping that much?
I mean,
Is
that's the
concern?
discussion here. That's the discussion here. Yeah.
So the effect of that first, just letting it go where it would be 6.6.
Yeah. So I refigured the revenue limit worksheet, and our levy is smaller because we're getting more state aid. Why are we getting more state aid? It's complicated, but one of the reasons too is, so our referendum dollars, our $800,000 per year, last year was figured as it was figured outside of the formula. Now going forward, this year and on forward, it's considered as part of the state aid formula. So that's a small part of it. And we can look at the worksheets in a minute if you want to dig into it. So anyway, the total levy is smaller. The property value is much higher, and so therefore, when you figure out the mill rate, it's 6.6 instead of 8.2. I was expecting it to drop this year, like a full point again. I mean, it dropped over a point last year, almost a point and a half last year. And if you look down at the bottom of that table, you look at the equalized tax rates across the state, you can see that our experience mirrors the state, right? So ours dropped a significant amount last year. Well, so did it statewide, right?
Yeah.
Because statewide, we have property values rising, and we have the state pumping more equalized aid into the formula statewide. So the mill rate going down that's happening everywhere.
Yeah.
So, the old way of thinking has always been, you want to keep your mill rate steady. And that's always been my, and the line of thinking is you don't want your mill rate bopping up and down all the time. However, understand that this mill rate, the function of it it's sort of out of our control, and it's not a bad thing. That it's just a result of the formula is all it is. It's just our levy is down and our equalized value is up, and so there are districts in our Lakeland Conference that have mill rates of like 1 and 2. Like districts up north that have a lot of lake country and have huge property values, they have mill rates of 1 and 2. So this is historically low for what we're used to. However, with that in mind, I just played with it a little bit on the different parts of the formula. One of the things that we can do that's outside the revenue limit is we can do what's called defeasance, which is like prepaying on our referendum debt. So we did this 3 years ago. We over levied, and that's how we kept our mill rate flat when we did the referendum the following year. So we could over levy some outside of the revenue limit authority, and then that would help us to keep our mill rate boosted up a little bit. So option 2 there is, so what I did is I said, well, what if we levied $2,663,459? Where did I get that number? Well, look back to fall of 2021. So I just went back and I said, well, what if we mirrored where we were at, 2 years ago? Last year we were down 5,000 from that. So I just plug that in, and that bumps us up a small amount, 6.78 for a mill rate. And then I said, okay, what would it take to keep us at 7 for a mill rate? And so in order to do that, we'd have to levy an extra $155,000. And not sure we want to do that, when it's not necessary. So I guess all I'm trying to do is illustrate for the board that we have, some different ways that we can try to manipulate the mill rate to try to keep it more steady. But at the same time, I think more important is the total levy is the number that's what affects taxpayers. Right? That's what affects their pocketbook is the actual taxes. So one thing that, school finance is incredibly complex, and our property taxes reflect that. So when people see that their property value goes way up, immediately people get alarmed and say, oh my gosh, my house value went up 40%, now my property taxes are going to go up 40%. No, that's not true, right? We're still levying the same dollar amount across our entire district. It's just that now they're going to, you're going to be assessed a smaller percentage of your property's value for your taxes. So that's what that mill rate is that dropping percentage number.
So if I could ask this question, there's a number of options that you've got in here. What allows you to increase what we levy, Chris? The part that we can play with is the part that is, that again, it's our Fund 39. It is our referendum debt service. So legally, when you pass a referendum, you can levy the whole. We had a $6.5 million referendum. If we wanted to, we could levy the whole debt and pay it off in 1 year if we wanted to. No, we'd all. I'd be looking for a new job, and we'd all get recalled. So that's what allowed Josh to do that.
Yeah,
then he levied some to pay some debt off.
Yep. That combined with the fact that we refinanced and saved some money too on the debt structure. But yeah, so we can over levy to keep our mill rate flatter, but I think we want to be careful with that too. If we over levy we don't want to raise taxes unnecessarily either.
Right.
So,
but then if you're levying for that purpose, a year or two from now, the levy will be allowed to go lower because that debt will be gone. Though, right?
Yeah. It's a 20-year debt payment, so we're on year 10. So we got 10 more years of it, of our mortgage, so to speak, if you want to look at it like a mortgage. So I guess, tonight the purpose to bring all this up is just to have you think about it, be aware of it, so that when I come back on the 23rd and say, well, we've got a 6.6, you aren't going, what? What's going on here? So between now and that time, I want to keep researching. I want to strategize a little bit, see what other districts are, how much they're dropping. Strategize with Barrett a little bit on longer range. I reached out to them, at what how much defeasance do you need to do to make it worthwhile? To pay if you're going to pay down early. To the time and effort that goes into doing that, there's got to be an amount that makes it worthwhile.
So interest rates for what we've got locked in versus what they are right now for the people that we're taking the money from.
Yeah.
Some more background things I can think of is Amory right now. There's residents that are complaining that their taxes are too high over there. Well, it would be kind of nice to say, hey, our taxes are pretty low over here. Yeah. And here's where the line is. Just come on over.
Yeah, and we definitely, Clayton just passed a pretty big referendum too, and I know they'll be looking at an increase, and that's what they had to do in their community to make it work. So I think, we've had times where we've had our taxes have to go up, and I think when there are times when they are in this situation, I think it's okay to feel okay about that too.
Right.
So, the declining enrollment is a long-term concern. That's going to affect our revenue. In theory, it affects our expenses too. If we adjust staffing. So
we're going to fix that.
We will. I'm confident we will too. And I just lost my train of thought now.
Sorry.
No, that's I think I do that on my own without any help sometimes. So,
Well, thanks for bringing this to light, Chris. This
Yeah.
is, and thanks for including us in this decision, because this is, you know, we're up here representing our constituents, which some of them are, you know, people who pay quite a bit of taxes, and households that can't really afford to pay a lot of taxes, you
Right.
know, so we got to try to be, you know, as diligent and as frugal as we can be.
yeah. I think right now we're riding a wave of the referendum. This is what I was going to say. The referendum is really helping us a lot. And the increasing property values are helping us, and that's you know, driving. And I guess I didn't. So if you look back 10 years to fall of 2014, you know, so I kind of color coded. You look at the total levy in 2014 was $2,159,000. Okay. You fast forward to 2023, and the total levy is $2,596,000. So, you know, that's an increase. I think I figured out as an increase of like 20% over those 10 years. Well, then you look at our property values: $192,551 back in 14, up to $393,000. Well, that's 102 or 120%. I'd figured out. So that's why the mill rate has shrunk so much, because our property value has outpaced our levy so much. So that's why it's dropped. So.
All right.
Other comments, questions? You know, and if you have more after the fact, you ruminate on that a little bit and want to talk about it more, you know, or even just I did make revenue limit sheets to show the difference of the three options, and I don't know that we want to delve into that super deep tonight, but if anybody, I'll give these to you if you want to take them with you. It kind of takes a PhD to get this, you know, it takes a while to wrap your mind around what all is going in there. But if anybody wanted to sit down with me and go through it sometime too, individually, I'd be more than happy to talk through it.
Yeah. All right, then we'll move on to our next item of business, which is discussion of special board meeting October 23 for the adoption of the final budget and levy.
Yeah, so just a reminder that we do need to have that special meeting to fit in between the October 15th release of the final official equalized revenue. What am I trying to say? What's the phrase? It's just escaping me right now. The final equalized aid from the state. They're still, you know, they're winnowing down, you know, what every district submits for student count and everything like that goes into this formula school by school. So that'll get tightened down, and then we need to have it approved in time to file the levy report with the DPI and to send that information out to the local municipalities by, you know, right around the 1st of November is when that happens. So we got a visitor out there. You can come in.
Come on in, Peter. You can sit in one of them chairs.
And you can leave the door open now, because there's no noise out there now. So just a reminder. So I guess I'm wondering if the board, would you want to meet at 5:30 at the normal time?
That's what I have in my calendar already, so.
Yeah, it's a Monday, and it's normal time, and it's traditionally been a pretty short meeting with one agenda item or two agenda items, and you know, so it's good here.
Yep.
Okay.
May or so.
Okay.
All right, then the next item of business is the consideration / approval of acceptance of proposal for district facility study.
Okay, so this is something we've discussed for a while as far as fitting our short-term, you know, maintenance and facility needs into a bigger, longer-term plan. Discussed it at this level. So I did go out and I sought proposals from 3 different firms to come in and do a comprehensive audit, a comprehensive analysis of our entire facility. So I got bids from CISA 10. Who has a service that does this. I got a bid from Kraus Anderson out of Minneapolis, and I got a bid from Market and Johnson out of Eau Claire, and they partner with River Valley Architects to do this kind of work as well. So I guess I would recommend, if the board would maybe want to table this to closed session, we can review the competitive bids there and then come out to open and make a decision after that.
All right, sounds good. Everyone's in favor of that. So then we'll move on to our next item of business, which are our superintendent notes.
Okay.
Mr. Christopher Peterson.
Let's see here. So I guess our fall, it's interesting how we had that late warm weather and now it's turned cool, and our fall athletic seasons are winding down all of a sudden. You know, we're in the final week of the regular season for cross country, volleyball, football. Marching band wrapped up their marching season with the homecoming last week. Busy week as far as in the business office. Lots of reports due to DPI in terms of student counts, annual budget reports, special ed budget reports. Lots going on there. I attended the WASDA Fall Conference 2 weeks ago, the second to last week of September. That was excellent again this year. There are the WASB fall regional meetings coming up. I know you guys all get those emails and those mailers as well. So October 4th is the Menominee one. October 19th is the Rice Lake one, or was the Menominee one. October 19th in Rice Lake for anyone who wants to attend that. We had a great in-service on October 2nd. It was a mix of training and work time for staff. So we had folks from Polk County come in from Child Protective Services and give a presentation, just an overview of what they do and how they operate and how, you know, what it means to take care of our kids and the partnership that often exists between schools and CPS to protect kids. We also had a live webinar from Samsung to do a second round of training on our new whiteboards, you know, after people have had a month to use them. So parent-teacher conferences are the first ones of the year tomorrow night here at the high school. So, and then elementary is on Friday. They're going to kick off a cool activity called One School, One Book. And Mrs. Jillick is kind of spearheading this, so the whole school is going to read one book, and it's a secret what the book is or what it's going to be. So none of the kids know about that, but the whole school is going to read the same book, or have it read to them as appropriate. So by teachers, by family members, by recording, whatever. So that's been a cool thing, and they're going to have a little ceremony to kick that off Friday afternoon. So we talked about October 23rd having a special meeting, and strategic planning efforts are ongoing. Touch base on that. We did have the secure release. By secure release, it means they're not public yet, but of the state report cards. So where districts can look at them and go through and then begin to look for data errors and irregularities and things like that. And I think we'll be pleased when we're able to share that in a couple months. Those usually come out publicly sometime in second week of November or so. So usually isn't until December that we share them here, but I think we'll be pleased with some of the things we'll have there. So anyway, so that's what I have.
Wowzers. All right, next item of business then is the contemplated closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute Sections 19.85, paragraph 1E. The board will review competitive bets. I will pull the board, or I will do a roll call. Nettie?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Christy?
Yes.
And Matthew?
Yes.
All right, we all are all present. All right, well, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the acceptance of the proposal from Kraus Anderson to complete a district-wide facility study for the amount of $14,400.
All second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to accept the bid from Kraus Anderson. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion passes. Next item of business is adjournment. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion passes. We are adjourned. Good meeting, everybody.